Mike Smith. You don't fear failure. You don't fear failure, Mike Smith.
The football was hurtling across the sky like a meteorite, and I was sprinting towards the goal to intercept it. As I reached the goal mouth, I leapt into the air, my knees grazing the shoulders of the other boys who were standing there waiting to catch it. I reached up and plucked the ball from the heavens, and as I fell to earth, I heard the whistle blow. I'd been awarded the free kick for goal. I stood there, the goalposts rising like church spires in front of me. The other boys started to jump around and call out to distract me, but in my mind I knew exactly what would happen. My voice was telling me, "You're going to miss this. You're hopeless. You'll miss the goal and let the team down." I was paralysed with fear and uncertainty. But the pressure was building. In the end, I passed the ball to my mate Gary, who confidently kicked the ball through the goal. In 5 years of playing Australian football at high school, I would have been in that goal square 100 times. And not once did I have the confidence to kick a goal. Madam Toastmaster, ladies and gentlemen, I remember the day that my fear of failure was born. It was in the Canterbury under-5 soccer team. Has anyone ever seen a 4-year-old play soccer? The little shorts come down to here. We don't know the rules, but we're just running. Hey, wherever the ball goes, we go. And on one of the circuits of this little swarm of toddlers, as we went around the field, we went past some parents, and I heard my mother call my name. "Michael, Michael," she said. So I ran over, because I wasn't contributing to the game. And she said, "If you can kick that ball into that goal, I'll buy you some real football boots." Now, my parents didn't have a lot of money, and I was the only kid on the team who was wearing normal running shoes. I looked at my shoes, and I looked at the ball, and I looked at the goal. And I thought, isn't that the goal we're going for? I didn't know a lot about football, but I knew that scoring the wrong goal was a mistake. And I decided, I'm not kicking any goals. No goal, no boots. My fear of failure was born. I have a nephew, Braden, who when he was that age was learning to ride a bike. And we were down at the local park. His dad had taken the trainer wheels off, and we'd get him going, and he'd pedal, 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 wobble, 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 fall onto the grass. We'd stand him up, pedal, 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 wobble, 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 fall. Over and over and over again. He was getting so frustrated. His little face was red. Tears were in his eyes. He just wanted to get it right so he could play with the other kids. And after one particularly spectacular crash, I went over to pick him up and I made a joke, cheer him up. I said, "Mate, you must really love that grass." He glared at me. "No, but it's only grass." And I realised that he knew something about fear of failure that I wished I knew when I was his age. When I was 19, I played in a rock and roll band. Yeah! Well, actually, it was really just a wedding band. But one afternoon, I was in my room practicing a new song, trying to get it right. I was going over and over again, trying to work out where to breathe so I could get the high notes, so that it would be familiar when I did it that night at the gig. And my dad popped his head in through the bedroom door and he said, "Would you like a cup of coffee?" I said, "Lovely." So a few minutes later, we're around the kitchen table, and he said, "That song that you're working on, is that hard to sing?" I said, "Yes, actually, it's quite difficult." He said, "Yeah, I thought so, because it's quite hard to listen to." Funny guy. But I explained to him that I had to rehearse it. I had to go over and over again so it would be familiar, so that it wouldn't take me by surprise when I was doing it live that night. You see, by then I'd met a friend and mentor, Jim, and he taught me a lot about fear of failure. Jim was one of those guys who everything he did, he seemed to be good at. You know those people? He was a champion windsurfer. He was always singing on the television. He made more money in a year than I thought you could make in a year. And he was helping me with my first business, which I was struggling with. And one day I asked him, I said, Jim, don't you sometimes fear that you're not going to be good? Don't you sometimes worry that you'll fail? Because I don't know if I can do this. And he said to me, you don't really fear failure. You fear the unknown because you don't know what's going to happen. And the obvious thing to do when you don't know something is to try to find out. He said, I know you can beat that fear. You just need to ask some questions. You don't fear failure, you fear the unknown, and so you need to ask some questions. And when I thought back to the Canterbury under-5s, the thing I needed to know, the one question was simply, which goal is the right goal? One question would have taken away that fear of failure. My nephew Braden already knew the answer to probably the most important question, which is, what's the worst thing that can happen? For Braden, the worst thing that could happen would be he'd fall on the grass, that soft, green grass. If the worst thing that can happen isn't actually that bad, what's there to fear? And when I was learning that song, by then Jim had taught me to ask the question, what can I rehearse? What can I practice over and over again that would make this feel more comfortable, feel more familiar? Because sure, the first time you do anything, you'll be nervous. But by the time you've done it 10 times, or 100 times, or 1,000 times, it becomes automatic. There is no fear. So when you're feeling that fear of failure, ask yourself, what do I need to know? What can I learn to help? We live in an age when it's never been easier to learn new things. Ask yourself, what's the worst thing that can happen, really? Because most times the worst thing that can happen isn't really that bad. And ask yourself, what could I practice? What could I rehearse over and over again to make this more comfortable, more familiar? You don't fear failure. You fear the unknown. And I know you can beat that fear. You just need to ask some questions.